Really warm welcome to Jack. So Jack Young studied, I think you studied computing and maths and physics at Pates, and you left in 2019. So Jack is talking to us today about degree apprenticeship. So I know that if you've attended some of the other talks that have been happening earlier on in the week, that they've been really inspiring actually, and it's so nice to see young people getting up to such fantastic a range of things. So really, degree apprenticeships are becoming more popular, and we have had quite a number of students go on and do various schemes. So Jack is part of the Jaguar Land Rover apprenticeship and is now in his second year. And yeah, so Jack, you'll be talking about your choice of degree apprenticeships, and also what the job entails, and what it's like to really balance studying and a job at the same time, which I'm sure has its own challenges, and obviously with COVID, extra challenges from maybe not being in the workplace as much as you would be normally, and perhaps being on your own a bit more rather than being surrounded by a team, and what that might look like. So thank you for coming along this afternoon. I'm sure you've all had quite an interesting week. We always look forward to hearing about what you've been getting up to this week. But I think if you have any questions that relate to what Jack is talking about as he's going through his presentation, perhaps if you could raise your hand and we'll try and facilitate those. But I think if you could leave sort of very generic questions right to the end of the talk, I think to maybe have a Q&A right at the end if you have any specific questions like that. Okay, so thank you, Jack, again for coming along. It's really, really kind of you to give up your time. I know you must be very busy, so we really appreciate you taking the time to talk to everybody. Okay, right, so I'm going to hand over to Jack. So you've got a PowerPoint now. Can everyone hear us okay? Just to make sure that the sound's all right. Yeah, I'm assuming that's all okay. So yeah, if you could put the questions in the chat perhaps, okay, and then I can see and read those out as at the end, okay, so that we can answer those. Okay, over to Jack. Thank you, Jack.
Brilliant, thank you. Get the slides up. Let's hope this works. Right, is that showing the
yeah, that's perfect.
That's the front page. Brilliant. Okay, so my name's Jack Young, and I'm on the Digital and Technology Solutions degree apprenticeship at Jaguar Land Rover. And today I'll try as quickly as possible go through what the apprenticeships we have at Jaguar Land Rover, what the company actually does now if you don't know. And then in the second half, I'll talk about a bit more about what I do and what it's like to be an apprentice at Jaguar Land Rover. So Jaguar Land Rover, even though I think most people would quickly assume they are a car company, are quickly becoming a technology company and bringing a lot of the software development and the technology in-house. So instead of paying an external company like Microsoft, Google, more well-known technology companies to create stuff for us, we are doing that in-house now, saving money and trying to innovate in different ways. So you can see at the bottom, we've got autonomous, connected, electric and shared, the ACES motto that they're running by at the moment, which is what we're trying to do with all the cars we're developing and the technology that is going on. So obviously, everybody knows autonomous cars are becoming more and more common with Tesla. Connected cars, trying to use your phone to connect to different things. Electric, obviously, the way things are moving at the moment, electric cars are the way forward, or even hydrogen cars. And then shared, looking to ride share, but also looking at more of a temporary leasing system on cars, like a rental, instead of people buying cars long term, because it seems the more logical option. Pretty much covered that already, so I'll skip that one. So the different apprenticeship programs we have at the moment range all the way from the same level as A-level to first year university, full degree, and then a master's level in finance. I'll talk to you a bit more about the degree level apprenticeships, and if anybody wants to know about the lower level ones, the higher and manufacturing apprenticeships, I'm more than happy to answer any questions about those. I'll quickly go through some myths about apprenticeships. I'm not sure how many people have done much research into apprenticeships or have spoken to people about them, but there's a lot of things that people hear or people assume about apprenticeships that aren't necessarily true. Depending on where you go, some of them can be true. But for me, I know that all of these are, in fact, myths. So obviously, Pates is quite a high standard school, and I did relatively well at Pates. So obviously, apprenticeships aren't for people that don't do well at school. They're for people that want a different route into companies, a different route into higher education, because even though an apprenticeship isn't specifically going to university full time, you will be studying for a degree and you will be gaining the same qualification, just in a different way. Apprentices will never earn very much. Personally, I'm on quite a comfortable salary at the moment, but there are some apprenticeships that don't pay as well. Most of the time, if you're looking at a degree apprenticeship, you're going to be paid very well with significant pay rises, and you're going to be being paid more than the average graduate in that industry. So it's pretty good. Apprenticeships don't lead to good qualifications. So I'm studying at University of Warwick and I'll get a Bachelor's of Science. So if that's not a good qualification, I don't really know what is. And then apprentices aren't given meaningful work. I have been given extremely meaningful work, and I'll go through what that is later in the presentation. Apprentices are stuck in the same profession for life. So I'm getting a degree in effectively software engineering, and will be given the skills to work mainly in the automotive industry, but especially with software. If you work in your own time in different programming languages, or you interest yourself in other areas of industry, it's so easy to move career as long as you can prove that you're willing to learn. And then apprentices don't get a full-time job. So I will be getting a full-time job if I complete the apprenticeship. I think it's with a 2-2 coming out of university. So, and that's all in my contract, so it's pretty much guaranteed. So all of these things here are said a lot when it comes to apprenticeships, but in fact, if you look for the right one, you find a good one, you get everything you want and more. So this is the apprenticeship that I'm on, which is Digital and Technology Solutions. It's got 4 pathways, which is software engineering, network engineering, data analytics, and software engineering with data. Most of them, for the first 2 years, you do the same modules as everybody else, and then in year 3 and 4, you would split off into the specialized pathways, depending on which pathway you're on. Level 6 means it's a degree apprenticeship, and the starting salary is around £20,000. And then, even though it's a bachelor's, it will be a 4-year program because it is part-time. Then we've got the Applied Professional Engineering Apprenticeship, which is new this year. 2 years ago, they had the Applied Engineering Degree Apprenticeship running, but it was a 6-year program. So they've cut it down to a 4-year. So effectively no more time than you would spend at university with a placement year. And this is more focused at practical engineering, product development, manufacturing. And if you were looking at an electrical and electronics degree, or maybe a mechanical engineering degree, this is the apprenticeship you'd be looking at. And then finally, for the degree apprenticeships, we do offer a finance apprenticeship. It is quite hit and miss as to when they do run it, because there's not always that much interest when it comes to finance at a car company. If you're going to do finance, people would be looking more into investment banking or banks in London and things like that. However, it is a brilliant way to get the qualification in finance. And I think you do get chartered status by the end of it. So it is pretty good. Again, the same salary and 4 years. So it's not too bad. I'll quickly run over the entry requirements. The only ones you'd really be looking at the moment are the 4 at the bottom. The A-levels, so obviously GCSEs, you need English and maths. I think 5 others, C grade or above. And then for the A-level grades, I know for software and network engineering, you need a C in maths, and then any other STEM subject at grade C or higher. And then for the data focused ones, you need a B in maths, and then any other subject in STEM, grade C or higher. So the entry requirements are quite low, and you would probably think, oh, the entry requirements are low. They're probably not looking for people that are that smart, or they're opening it up to a wider area of people. But the main reason they have their grade requirements so low is because although they're looking for people that have excelled academically, they're also looking for people that are willing to learn in a workplace and have the mindset to go straight into a workplace, because some people just don't want to work straight out of school. They want to go to university. And Jaguar Land Rover are really focused on sort of the behaviors and the skills that you could bring to the company, and they have all of the tick boxes that they're trying to look for. So that's why the grade requirements are significantly lower than your standard Russell Group University or Cambridge or Oxford. So benefits and support of working at Jaguar Land Rover. The employee learning scheme is something really cool. So every year we get, I think it's £300 to go and do basically whatever you want. Usually people go and do a plumbing course, or they do an electronics course, or bricklaying, or something practical. I chose to go and do rally driving because if it's available, why wouldn't you? So that was good fun. And then pretty generous holiday. I get 27 days holiday a year. So obviously that's one thing you do have to consider when looking at an apprenticeship. You're not going to be getting the summer holidays, the Easter holidays, the long Christmas holidays, because you do only get that 27 days a year. But I will say 27 days when you're working full time is quite a lot, and the time goes past so quick that by the end of the year I still had loads of holiday to take because I'd just forgotten to take it. So don't let that put you off as something, missing holidays and things like that. You've got plenty of time to go and do what you want and have the free time. Some really good discount schemes that we have. So car discount schemes, clothing discount schemes, pretty much any high street shop you can think of, you probably get about 10% off. So also being an apprentice, you get a student discount and corporate discount. So you get the double whammy of being able to get the 20% off through uni days, but also 20% off through the company, which is really nice. And then we've got the Early Careers Hub, which is a graduate, apprentice, and undergraduate run sort of community where they organise online events, at the moment online events, but pre-COVID it was days out to rugby. So obviously Wasps are now based in Coventry, and Jaguar Land Rover are one of the big sponsors, so we get big discounts on that, and days out to the rugby, ice skating, go-karting, sushi making classes. I think it's literally anything. So even though you're going into a full-time job, there's still that social aspect that a lot of people don't think you get, which I think is really good. What's the next slide? The recruitment process. Okay, so I'll quickly run you through how the recruitment works, as it is slightly different to the UCAS process. So as normal, you'd apply online, but this would be through the company website. The window is a little bit smaller than the UCAS window, and also it could be closed at any time. So obviously I think UCAS closes sometime in December, and it's always a set date, whereas these job applications could close a week after they've opened if they have enough applications. So if you do want to get an apprenticeship, you need to apply as early as possible to really get in there, and well, apply as early as possible without rushing the application, I'd say. Second thing you have to do is online tests, and this can range from hundreds of different things depending on what company you go for. But specifically for Jaguar Land Rover, you have the situational judgment, which is where you get put into a scenario, and it's what would you do if this person said this, and you'd get 4 options, and it'd be like shout at them, hit them in the face, go and speak to your manager, or ask them politely to not talk to you like that. It seems like simple questions, but they're really trying to see how you deal with different situations and things like that. Obviously, I don't think anybody here is going to say hit them in the face, but you never know. And then obviously going for the technical side of the apprenticeships, you need to pass some basic maths, some basic problem solving and things like that to show that you have the basic skills to interpret data, to mainly problem solving. It's not always whether you get the right answer or not. They just wanted to see how your brain works and if you can think out of the box and produce new ideas in different ways, basically. And if you pass all of that, then you get invited to an assessment centre, which is just an interview, usually with between 5 and 10 people. And you would do a one-to-one interview with someone that works at the company, usually not someone from HR, it would be someone from engineering or finance, from the hiring department, basically, to do a technical interview. And then you'd have some group activities and bits and bobs like that. I had to do a technical interview, a group activity, and a presentation. So for my presentation, I did my A-level computing project. So it was pretty easy for me to grab that and just explain how I'd done it and how I went about designing what I did. And then finally, after that, if you're successful, you would get an offer and you'd have the contract and you get that signed, and then you'd start in September. Where you could be based. So Jaguar Land Rover at the moment is quite spread out over the country, but mainly focused in the Midlands. I'm based in Gaydon, which is the one at the bottom that says Advanced Product Creation Centre, and that's where most of the engineering employees are. And if you were going for the software apprenticeship, you would be most likely based in Gaydon. If you went for the engineering one and you chose the manufacturing pathway, it's quite possible that you'd be put at one of the manufacturing sites. But the rest of the time, you're either at Warwick University doing research or you're in Gaydon for product engineering. Some hints and tips for applying. I would say, like I said, apply as soon as possible. That's a really important one. But also make sure there are no errors in your application. Researching the company is really important, especially when you get to the interview stage, because you'll be asked questions about, what do you know about this? Have you seen this in the news? Have you seen this? What more do you know about the company and the industry? And if you can't show interest and prove that you've gone out of your way to learn stuff for the interview, they're probably not going to consider you for the position just because you've not put that extra effort in. On the company website where you go to apply, there'll be a list of skills and behaviours that they want. I'd say learn those, live and breathe them, and try and apply anything you've done from work experience, from school, try and apply those to the skills and behaviours that Jaguar Land Rover would like. And then try and do some practice tests. So online, like I said, the online test that you have to do, there's usually a practice test that you can get to do. And practice as many times as you want, really. I think practice makes perfect, so that's a good one. And then make sure, I know it's always difficult when you go to an interview when they say, oh, have you got any questions? You go, oh, I'm not sure, I don't know, probably not. I know that I didn't have a question, which did annoy me a little bit, because it's always good to, well, a job interview is more than just them interviewing you, you're interviewing them. You want to see if you want to work there. So go prepared with some questions that are relevant, but also some that show what you're interested in and sort of who you are, to stand out a little bit. Okay, so I'll move on to what I do now. So I stole this slide from another early careers presentation I did, but I thought it was quite a good one to sum up what I do and why I chose to work at Jaguar Land Rover. So I work in electrical engineering, specifically in comfort in-house software. So at the start of the presentation, I spoke about how we're bringing everything in-house and developing software in the company now. So my team specifically focuses on bringing software from suppliers and then proving to the company that we can do it in-house, and then delivering that software in-house to save money, but also give us the freedom to decide how we want to develop that software. I chose to join Jaguar Land Rover because, well, I'm really interested in cars. I've watched pretty much every episode of Top Gear, and also love a bit of technology. Obviously, I did computer science, so it was pretty much a good fit company-wise. And then also Warwick is a top university, and also one of the only top universities that is providing apprenticeships at the moment. So it is a great place to be. Sorry. And also Warwick and Jaguar Land Rover are very close together, so it doesn't require much travelling. They're all within 20-30 minutes of each other. So on a day-to-day basis, what I do is perform tests and update engineering vehicles. So we have certain cars on site that would be solely for testing and basically testing software on or testing different parts. So they won't be sold to anybody. They're just there for us to play with. I also write code for the software or even engineering tools. So I could be writing software to go into the car, or I could be writing software to then help my team do things quicker. It's like automation and things like that and machine learning. I'm also the lead for designing the website for the Early Careers Hub. So I mentioned earlier the Early Careers Hub that is run by graduates, apprentices and undergraduates. I am the lead for that, and I get to design the website and basically interact with people from HR, engineering, finance, marketing, and whatever they want to put on the website. I then put that together and design it. It's only on SharePoint, so it's not like I'm doing actual website design, but you're doing the user interface and really trying to prove that you can do things outside of the job. And then top tips, I've sort of gone through those already, but especially with you guys, you've not had much chance to get work experience because obviously of COVID. So any experience is experience. Doesn't have to be work experience, just life experience. It doesn't have to be specific to the job you're applying for, but anything that you've done, anybody you've interacted with, anywhere you've been, projects you've done at school, subjects that you've studied at school, extracurricular things, everything can be applied to business and everything can be applied to university applications. You just got to be smart about how you do it. Try to keep up with the latest technologies, especially ones that we're looking at as a company, because we constantly try to innovate and look at new technologies. And if you can prove that you're keeping up with that and are interested in it, that's always going to help you in the application. And then I'd say tailor your CV to the job. So don't send the same CV out to every company you apply for. You want to change them little bits. So you don't have to change the whole thing. Maybe add a small paragraph at the start or add a cover letter just to give it the personalized feel for the company and not make it look like you're batch sending your CV out to different companies. Otherwise, they're going to think you don't really care. So I work within engineering, and these are the different competencies that we have. I'm specifically electrical, electronic, and software engineering, but you could be placed within any of these if you take an engineering related role. Electrical, electronic, and software engineering is quite self-explanatory what they focus on, mainly automated driving, infotainment, the heating, ventilation, the seats, the doors, literally anything that has electronics in, they'll be working on that. I specifically work in HVAC, seat zone module, and door zone module, which is air conditioning, seats, and the doors. At the moment, I'm working primarily in door zone module, and that's currently supplied by a supplier. So my job at the moment is to bring it from, well, take the software that the supplier is making, make it ourselves, prove to the company that we can do that, and then hopefully by, I think it's 2024, myself and other members of my team will be developing that door zone module software to save the company silly amounts of money every year. A project I worked on recently, which was a tiny bit of software, it was to make the door handles retract when they're in the showroom. So really simple stuff, but it cost the company £80,000 to get that change made. So you can imagine £80,000 for such a small change. If we did that internally, that's a thing that would take me an hour to do, and it's cost them what, £13 to pay me that. So it's a big difference between the £80,000 and the £13 an hour. But that's mainly the big reason behind that is because companies are scared to do software themselves, and Jaguar Land Rover are trying to bring that in-house because it is cheaper, but they're not a software specialist. So that's kind of where we're moving at the moment, is to a technology company more than an automotive company. Obviously still building cars, but trying to emphasize the fact that we do all the technology ourselves. So this is a little example of what I've been working on recently. So like I said, we're bringing the door zone module software, so anything to do with the doors, mirrors, windows, the blinds on the doors, the blind spot detection, literally anything that you can think of to do with the door is part of that software. And I'm building a prototyping bench. So this is a circuit diagram that goes from what says MabX on the left is what the ECU will be, so the electronic control unit, which is effectively the brain for the door. And we're making a sort of mock-up one of those to test software with different components. So on the right, you can see you've got the mirror, deployable door handles, and then I think the one at the bottom is the door latch. So I've been putting together that as a circuit diagram to then build this. So this is a hardware in the loop rig. This one is for HVAC and seats. So the photo on the right is every single panel that one of our cars could have. So that's to do with the actual heating and air conditioning. So you've got the dials and everything like that, and the different buttons for recirculation. We have every single variant of that on this bench, and then we can test it with our software without having to go to a car. So without breaking anything, we can break the stuff here and not actually affect any of the cars, and it allows us to test stuff really quickly and sort of rapid prototype the software that we're putting out. So this is a quick example of the coding that I do. The top left is just some Python program that I wrote that was the automation stuff I was talking about. That's just a little snippet. And then for the industry standard for automotive, we would use MATLAB and Simulink. So I don't know how much, I know that we didn't learn any MATLAB at computing level at PATES, but I don't know whether physics may cover it depending on what optional module you take. But MATLAB is used pretty much in every degree now. If you're doing any science or engineering, any STEM degree, you'll look at MATLAB at least once. And we use Simulink, which is a modeling technology. So it's, if you imagine the left-hand side is coding and you're writing all the code, the right-hand side, each one of those blocks is some lines of code, and then you put it together. So it's sort of like building a puzzle sort of thing, where it writes the code for you, but you still have to understand the underlying code to then make sure that it all works after that. So yeah, so we build the code like this, take the software to a car or the rig that we've got here, and then we take a log which looks a bit like this. So it looks a bit gobbledygook on the screen, but this is what we take from the car, and it would tell us exactly what's going on. So if we've got any problems, we can analyze the logs here, work out what the problem is, and then, like it says there, take it back to the code, go back to the models or the source code and say, okay, this is what we need to change, and you change it. And then you go back to the rig and you test it on there, and then you take a log and you make sure that it all works again. So it's a big circle of code, test, adjust, code, test, adjust, that sort of thing. And then if it all works, we would take it to an engineering car. So in that car park is all our engineering cars. They don't actually get owned, they're not owned by anybody. They're just all the cars that we can go and grab and then put some software on and see if it works. And if it doesn't work and we break it, it gets scrapped. And then we've got a scrapyard where I've been a couple of times in the last couple of weeks, ripping a door off. So at the start, I was talking about the circuit diagram and different components. Obviously, to get those components, I can't take them off a new car, so I've got to go to an old car and basically whack them off with a hammer and hope that I don't break them. So that's good fun. And then this is a quick aerial shot of where I work. So this is Gaydon. We've got Aston Martin next door. So this is the site right at the bottom of the different sites that Jaguar Land Rover have. I work, if you can see, can I see my mouse? Yeah. So I work in this building here, which is the electrical building next door to Aston Martin. If you follow Formula One, and you'll know of Lawrence Stroll, who owned Racing Point and now owns the Aston Martin racing team and has a stake in Aston Martin. His helicopter's flown over about 20 times in the last 3 weeks, which is quite cool. And then we've got the test track. So obviously cars need to be tested, and we don't test them out on the road until we know they're properly roadworthy. So on the test track, I think they go up to, depending on what car they have, up to 130, 40 miles an hour, sometimes with trailers attached, which is pretty ridiculous. And then there's skid pads, hill climbs, off-road tracks, literally anything you can think of to test a Land Rover to its full extent. We've got that there. So that is pretty cool. I haven't had the chance to go out onto the track yet, which is a little bit sad. But some of my friends have, so I'm a bit jealous of them. And I've not taken a car home either. And some of my friends get to take a car home every single day. So pretty lucky there. But it could be worse, I guess. Right, so that's the end of the presentation. But if you've got any specific questions related to the job or even just apprenticeships in general, I'm more than happy to answer those.
Thanks so much, Jack. That was absolutely fascinating. Really, really interesting, actually, in terms of just what you've talked about and your route into it and what the job entails. So if anyone does have any questions, please put them in the chat now so that I can read them out.
They don't have to be specific to Jaguar Land Rover either. I've done a couple of podcasts recently with different companies that were specifically just about apprenticeships. So it could be anything to do with apprenticeships, anything to do with software. Doesn't have to be specifically about this apprenticeship, because I think I applied for 100 in the end and went to like 20 different interviews. So I've got quite a wide knowledge of them at this point.
Like you've got loads of experience. Fantastic. Okay, I've just got a question here. What are your long-term career plans following your apprenticeship?
That's a good question. Initially, I wanted the typical work in an investment bank and make a silly amount of money, because that's how it's going at this point. If you're a software engineer that's good at their job and you go and work in London at an investment bank, you get paid crazy amounts of money. But now I'm looking more at staying at Jaguar Land Rover just because of the cool things that are going on, bringing the company Jaguar full electric by 2025, zero emissions from Land Rover by 2030, I think it is, and like completely net zero carbon emissions by 2039 is pretty ridiculous for a car company. So it'd be pretty cool to be a part of that. But also possibly in the civil service, GCHQ, MI5, obviously Cheltenham having GCHQ. I'd like to come back to Cheltenham. It's a lovely place. So possibly there, but it really depends on what happens by the end of the apprenticeship. If they offer me a little bit more money, then maybe I'll stay there. I sound like I'm chasing the money here, but what I mean is it really depends. It really depends how the apprenticeship goes. If I don't do that well in the degree and the only job I can get, obviously I would stay at Jaguar Land Rover. But if there are different opportunities that come up, I will definitely consider those, but probably automotive or civil service, nowhere else at the moment.
Great, thank you. Right, another question here. This is quite a specific one about sport. Okay, how much is sport supported by a degree apprenticeship? Universities.
Oh, no, that's a really good question. I didn't cover any of that. Okay. So even though I'm a part-time student at Warwick and don't actually go to campus that often, for the first 3 months before COVID, I joined the wakeboarding society, the swimming society, the surfing society, and what was the other one? There was one other one, I can't remember. But I've been wakeboarding probably once a month with the university societies. I went and joined the swimming club. You can join rugby. I know a few people that are in the rugby society, playing like proper competitive rugby as well. So you're definitely not excluded from that by doing an apprenticeship. If anything, with this apprenticeship, you've got everything you want from Warwick, plus you're getting paid. So there's really no downside to doing it. Yeah, I mean,
brilliant.
You've got all the access to the same facilities.
Double bonus there, excellent. I hope that answers it, Tom. There's lots of choice for sport. Okay, Dylan, how much of your job is actual software development and programming, and how much is it electronics? I've looked at digital technology solutions before and I couldn't get a feel for how much was actual software development.
Good question. So digital and technology solutions, in English, it is software engineering with business management. The reasons companies choose this degree is because they want you to have the technical skills of software, but ultimately they're training you up to be management. They're training you up to be the leaders in 10 years' time. So they want you to have that business management knowledge and things like that, and a bit of finance. So that's why you can't really find much of software development in the degree. However, there is a lot of software modules. I'm more than happy to send over the list of modules from my actual degree. It's specific to Jaguar Land Rover because it's automotive, but you get an idea of how much software there is. And then
that'd be really useful.
Yeah, that's fine. In the job, every single day I'm doing software. At the moment, I'm doing a lot of electronics because without the testing bench, we can't test the software. So there's no point in having that testing bench. There's no point in making the software until we can test it. But so if you're in the data analytics team, you'll be doing purely software. If you're in the infotainment team, you'll be doing purely software. It really just depends on where you get put. And if you don't like where you are, you usually can move team quite easily. And I know at the moment they're trying to adopt the same policy as the grad scheme, where they will call you and say, look, what team do you want to go in? What are you interested in? What things do you like to do? And then they'll try and place you into a team that suits your interests.
Okay, thanks very much. Hopefully, any more questions? Were you looking at, did you have a choice of apprenticeships that you wanted to go into? I mean, or did you sort of have pick of the bunch that you wanted to go?
I think it was 4 or 5 offers in the end, so about the same as your standard UCAS application. One of them was Renishaw, so they do it with Exeter University. PlayStation was with Queen Mary's in London. There was also Bloomberg, and then I looked at Ministry of Defence, but the interview was right at the end of the summer, so I didn't bother going in the end. Yeah, so sorry, what was the question again?
Well, what attracted you to Jaguar Land Rover in the first place?
Well,
was that your
so the degree itself, the actual the name of the course is the same to whatever company you go to. If you're looking at the software one, it was mainly Warwick University, how close the two sites were. So a lot of Thales, the defence contractor, they're on the same course as us, and we have our lectures with them. But a lot of them are based in Crawley, so like near Gatwick, and they have to travel hundreds of miles to get to the university and do the university week. So a big reason behind Jaguar Land Rover and Warwick was that they were so close together and integrated really well. And then obviously the interest in cars, technology, and the area itself. I think this is one of the only ones outside of London that has the company right next to the university. Because again, Renishaw and Exeter, Renishaw is based in Stroud, so it's again quite a trek to Exeter. So I think that's a big reason behind it, just the proximity of them and convenience.
Sounds like you've got a fantastic range of experience as well, just looking at all of the slides there. Okay, have we got any more questions? Doesn't look like we've got anything coming through, but that would be brilliant if you wouldn't mind sending over those.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I've got the list
Okay.
somewhere of the modules and all the descriptions of them, so you get a good idea of what's going on. My email's on the screen, so if anybody has any questions that they don't want to ask here and they'd like an answer to, you're more than welcome to email me or go through Miss Kluwer or Miss Hardy, anybody else. They can always contact me.
Yeah, please do. That's really kind. Thank you.
I'll send over the list to one of you, and then you can share that in one of the groups. That's fine.
Perfect. Okay, well, that is such a useful and interesting talk. So I hope you feel suitably inspired by that. And thank you again, Jack. That was an excellent talk, and you covered so much ground and amazing hints and tips for everybody. So for anyone who is thinking of that route. So thank you so much. We'll leave it there unless anyone does have any questions. Oh, have I got any more? Oh, yeah. Okay, no more questions, it looks like. But yeah, very, very useful, Jack. Thank you so much. And best of luck for all the 12s for the rest of the week.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody, for coming. And any questions, send them over. Thanks. Okay.
I'll just